Now this is a very, very important question now, and if you're an evolutionist, you really can't dodge this one, because again, I'm going to go back to the start of the beginning, where all the matter came from. I'll just ask this question, then I'm not going to say any more on the matter about stellar evolution or the Big Bang or the cosmic event. So my question was, now if I had a massive container, okay, and inside this container there was an absolute vacuum. There was no light in it, no air, no water, no gases, no molecules. It was a void of absolutely everything, and also it was subjected to temperatures of minus 270 degrees below zero. Now, if I left this container for 20 billion years and then I came back to observe what was in there, would I find nothing, or would I find life and New York City and everything we see on the planet today, and all the stars and everything we observe out there somewhere? Now, you just can't jump from something out of nothing to a science which is focused on transitional animals or beings or whatever, something like that. So I'd like to ask someone, if you've got the gumption to come up with an answer, how did we get everything from a nothingness, a vacuum? Because to me that flies in the face of science, common sense, and also the second law of thermodynamics, which demands that everything breaks down from the moment of its conception, which is obviously that's science, that's true. So to me, the evolution of planetary evolution didn't happen. So that's just one question. If you could clear up for me, Aaron or anyone. I did pose this question on the internet to several people, had no reply. So I'll ask Aaron for a direct answer.
I already gave you one. This is the same question I just answered for you. Evolutionists don't believe that anything ever came from nothing. A lot of people realize that atoms are made up almost entirely of empty space, so they imagine that if you could somehow force all the space out of the atoms, you could squish everything down pretty well, especially when you realize that matter can be created out of energy and vice versa. And that's obviously the case here, with an insanely hot plasma state cooling to become the first subatomic particles. But we're not talking about a super dense ball of pre-material energy floating around in a big black void for a while before it erupts. It is much more abstruse than that, because it isn't just energy. It's all the forces of nature as well as time and space. Everything, existence itself, was squished into this one infinitesimal unit. Now, I said that the singularity was insanely hot, so how did you hear that it was bitterly cold? I said it was made of matter, energy, time, space, and literally everything else. So how did you take absolutely everything to mean absolutely nothing? I said it was a super dense ball of material energy wherein even space around it were compressed into a single unit of absolute volume. So how did you interpret that to mean that it should be a vacuum? Worse than that, after I posted my original video to your opening comment, I saw where you had posted this question in the comment section of that video and in the discussion board of your own video, and I posted my answer there too, paraphrased. And I'm not the only one who did it. I answered it 3 times myself, and there's at least a couple of other guys too. So why don't you go back and look through the comment section and see the replies that were already there when you said you had none. Didn't you bother to look? Because apparently you didn't even watch the video I made for you, because you're still asking the same questions with the same mistakes that I just corrected for you. Now, why is that?
Trouble is, sheep are very dim. And once they get an idea into their heads, there's no shifting it.
But where did they get the idea from?
Whomever you get your information from, they lied to you. Now let me suggest you correct your question. Try again. Let's say you have a container, any size will do, with an entire universe forcibly squished into it under tremendous pressure, absolutely all of it packed into the form of a highly unstable plasma superheated to billions of degrees and so dense that it even sucks in the walls of the container itself. Now, if you got out of there before it erupted and came back 20 billion years later, would you find New York City in it? No. Any city you find would not be New York, because that already exists somewhere else. But you would find an expanding universe there. And since all the billions of galaxies in it would have more than 1 billion stars each, then at least some of them would host inhabited planets with cities close enough to ours to satisfy your comparison.
With the evolutionists, they presume that everything must have started somehow.
Wait, are you saying that the things we see happening never started? Or were they always happening? Which presupposition are you working from?
I'm not too sure how they started, but anyway, it started, so we're not focused on that so much.
Oh, no. We're going to focus on that for just a minute. You think that an unrivaled consensus of the global scientific community, including all of the most brilliant expert specialists from every discipline, religion, or nation, all unified in claiming such certainty for that one explanation exclusively that Nobel Prizes are repeatedly awarded for those proving the validity of that conclusion where no other notion even warrants discussion, and you think they're not sure about it?
Right, anyway, my apologies to those people who I have upset before. People have been calling me all sorts of names. Don't bother me, a bit childish really. It just goes to prove that Bible scripture is coming alive, because it does say in the end times we will be subject to this kind of abuse, so that gives me great encouragement. Right.
You understand that dogmatic believers admit that they base their assumptions on emotional biases rather than on evidence, and that they assert blind speculation as if it were a matter of demonstrable fact. And they've decided in advance to automatically execrate, reject, and otherwise ignore, without consideration, any and all evidence that may ever be brought to bear, and even if they can't predict what it might be, because they're forbidden to ever admit when they're wrong. Even in cases like where a mere taxi driver who admits that he has very little education and repeatedly demonstrates that he has no idea what he's talking about at any point on any level, yet he is convinced that his misinformation must be more accurate than that of the world's collective specialists on any topic the uneducated layman dares to argue about. And you don't believe that this sort of blatant dishonesty just might be the real reason that creationists get such flack? So do you think the fake Dr. Kent Hovind is in federal prison because the scriptures are true? Or is it because he's a cheat and a liar? Did Ted Haggard lose his ministry because these are the end times? Or was it because of his own end times? When intelligent design was found by a conservative Christian judge to be a creationist scam with witnesses for it committing perjury on the stand, was that proof of the truth of creationism or proof of its lies? When even Answers in Genesis declares that Dr. Carl Baugh is a fraud and a charlatan just like Kent Hovind, is that proof of the truth of scriptures too? When every claim ever made by any creationist anywhere either can never be tested in any way at all or has already been proven wrong by every means possible, does that give you great confidence too? When you eventually realize that there has never been a single verifiably accurate argument of evidence positively indicative of supernatural creationism over biological evolution, and that the creationism movement depends entirely on misrepresentation and falsification, I imagine you'd be tickled shitless with all the proof you'd have in your scriptures then, because look at all the people that would hate you, and why. However, it just might be that people don't like liars or people who lack credibility enough to change their minds or even admit when they're proven wrong.